Lesson 9-6, factoring trinomials. Factoring is also the opposite of the distributive property. When we factor a trinomial in the form of squared bx plus c, you're going to find two integers, m and p, with a sum of b and a product of c. So you're just thinking, what two numbers do I multiply to get c, but add them together gives you b. A polynomial that cannot be written as a product of two polynomials with an integer coefficients is called a prime polynomial. It just means you cannot break it down because they're made up of prime numbers. So example 1, where c is positive. So I have to think, what two numbers do I multiply together to get 18, but when I add them together, it gives me a negative 9. So I'm going to start off with my two binomials. I know it has to start with an x, so you get my x squared. When c is positive and b is negative, I know both of these have to be negative numbers. So I think 6 and 3 give us 18. 9 and 2 gives us 18, but if I were to add them together, which one would give me a negative 9? Negative 6 times a negative 3 gives me a positive 18. Negative 6 plus a negative 3 gives me a negative 9. So my answer would be x minus 6 times x minus 3. This next one, I have to think, what do I multiply to get 24? But if I take those same two numbers and add them together, it gives me 10. So I know 6 times 4 is 24 and 6 plus 4 is 10. So that would have to work for my answer. So it'd be x plus 6 and x plus 4. Now you could put x plus 4 first and then x plus 6. It doesn't matter as long as you have those same binomials. Example 2, c is negative and b is positive. I have my two binomials and I got to think, what do I multiply to get negative 14? If I add those same two numbers, it'll give me a positive 5. Since c is negative and b is positive, I know one of them is going to be positive and one's going to be negative. You have to figure out which one of those would be. So I know 7 and 2 are 5 apart, and 7 and 2 gives us 14. So if I do 7 times negative 2, that gives me negative 14. 7 plus a negative 2 gives me 5. So this would be x plus 7 and x minus 2. Next one here, it's got my parentheses, our x's. I got to think, what do I multiply to get negative 11? But those same two numbers I add together gives me a positive 10. Again, I know one's positive, one's negative because c is negative and b is positive. So I think two numbers to multiply to get 11. The only ones I know is 11 and 1. But to get a negative, one of them's got to be negative. And when I add them together, one of them's got to be negative to give me a positive 10. So if I did 11 times negative 1, that gives me a negative 11. 11 plus a negative 1 gives me 10. So my binomials would be x plus 11 and x minus 1. Example 3, c is negative and b is negative. So I draw my binomials, x and x. Since one of them is negative and since c is negative, I need to have one negative and one positive. It doesn't matter where you put the negative and where you put as positive. What do I multiply to get negative 4? But if I add them together, it gives me a negative 3. So to get negative 4, I could do 2 times negative 2. But if I add those two together, it doesn't give me negative 3. So that one doesn't work. I could do 4 and 1, that equals 4. One of them's got to be negative. If I do negative 4 times 1, that gives me negative 4. Negative 4 plus 1 does give me negative 3. So I know my answer is x minus 4 and x plus 1. Next one, one's positive and one's negative. I need to know, what do I multiply to get negative 24? But if I add those same two numbers together, it gives me a negative 5. Now earlier we had one where it was 6 and 4 that gave you 24, but if you add them together, that gives you 10. So that doesn't work. And if if you had 6 minus 4, that gives you 2. And 4 minus 6 gives you a negative 2. There can't be 6 and 4. I could do 8 and 3. 8 times 3 is 24. To make this negative, I could do negative 8 times 3 is negative 24. And negative 8 times 3, or negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5. So I would have a 3 here and a negative 8 there. So my binomials are x plus 3 times x minus 8. Example 4, you need to factor this if possible. And if the polynomial cannot be factored using integers, then you're going to write prime. So I need to think, what do I multiply? What do I multiply to get 8? But if I take those same two numbers and add them together, it has to give me a negative 4. So I have 8 and 1, but that doesn't add up to negative 4, so those can't be the numbers. My only other choice is 4 and 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 4 plus 2 gives you negative 4, gives you positive 6. If I did negatives, negative 2 times negative 4 is 8. Negative 2 plus negative 4 is negative 6. So that doesn't work. So this one would be prime. Next one for B, factor this one. So I need to come up with my two binomials. Yeah, think, what do I multiply to get 24? But if I take those same two numbers and add them together, it gives me negative 2. Well, I know that 6 and 4 gives us 24. 6 and 4 gives us 8. If I had one of them negative, that will give me a negative 24. Can't have that. So let's try some other numbers. Actually, let's do, yeah, we can't do that one. Let's do 8 and 3. That would not work. We have 12 and 2. That one would not work either. Since none of those would work, this would be prime. Next, factor these, and if you can't factor it, it would be prime. So I think, what do I multiply to get 6, but add them together gives me 7. I know that this would be x plus 6 times x plus 7. 6 times 1 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. Next one, you get 12 and add them together gives you negative 8. I could do negative 6 and negative 2 because negative 6 times negative 2 is 12. Negative 6 plus negative 2 is negative 8. And the last one here, you need to get to 40, but add them together gives you 3. So let's think. I got 8 and 5 to get 40. And if I have one of them as negative, that will give us a negative 40. And if I did 8 plus a negative 5, that would give me 3. So my answer would be x plus 8 and x minus 5. Example 5, using a word problem with factoring, Switzerland's flag has a very unique shape. It is a square. However, the flag used by the country's naval vessels is rectangular. If the area of the square flag is square minus x plus 9 square feet, and the length is increased by 4 feet, then what is the area of the naval flag in terms of x? So the first thing we're going to do is factor this trinomial. I got to think, what do I multiply to get 9? That gives me negative 6. That would be negative 3 and negative 3. Now it's saying, so if this is our length and this is our width, they're saying the length is increased by 4. So if I take my length of x minus 3, add 4 to it, and then do x minus 3, then I can find the area of the naval flag, which this would be x plus 1 times x minus 3. And if I were to FOIL that, I would have x times x is x squared minus 3x plus 1x minus 3. So that would give us an area of x squared minus 2x minus 3, and this would be square feet. Next, Mindy is a landscaping contractor who has devised a formula for the new area of a patio given in the length and width. The customer's patio is x squared plus 10x plus 5 square feet, and the customer wants to increase both the length and the width by 6 feet. Write an expression to represent the new area. So first I need to find out what the length and width are, and I'm going to factor that. So what do I multiply to get 25? That gives me 10. This would be x plus 5 times x plus 5. And if I need to increase both of them by 6, that would be x plus 5 plus 6 times x plus 5 plus 6, or think of it as x plus 11 times x plus 11. And you can either FOIL this, or you could use a sum of squares here, which would be using the formula a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And this would be our a and this is our b. So if I did that, a squared is x plus 2 times a times my b plus my b squared. This will give us an answer of x squared plus 22x plus 121. And that would be the area of the new patio. Next part is factoring binomials with a leading coefficient that's not 1. So we were doing ones with a leading coefficient of 1. So there is a method to do this, and I call it the AC method. And they call it the AC method is because here's my A, my B, and my C. My first step is to multiply my A and C together. If I have a new C, then I can use that to factor there. But your very first step would be, if you can factor out a greatest common factor first, do that first. Let's take a look at an example. Here I got 4x squared and 18x and 10. I can factor out a 2, and that leaves me with 2x squared plus 9x minus 5. Now I'm going to save this 2 later for my answer. I'm going to use the AC method, which I take my 2x squared and I multiply it by negative 5, which gives me negative 10x squared. Now I have to think, what do I multiply to get negative 10x squared? But if I take those same 2 answers, I get 9x. So I know that I could do 10x times x and 10x minus plus a negative 1x is 9x. And then all I need to do is bring down the sides. So I have 2x squared plus 10x, and then x minus 5. And I have 2 binomials where I can do factor by grouping. So I already have my groups here. Now I can factor out a 2 here, and I can factor out an x. And that leaves me with x plus 5. And over here, I can factor out a, actually this is, one of these is negative, so this is a negative x. Now I can factor out a negative 1 here, and that leaves me with x plus 5. Here's part of my answer. So I have 2x minus 1 times my other binomial, which is x plus 5. But remember, I have this greatest common factor that I need to put in here. So my answer in simplified form would be 2 times 2x minus 1 times x plus 5. Next factor, this one when c is negative. So again, I have 7x squared minus 5x minus 2. There's no greatest common factor, so we're going to check to see if I can factor this. This will give us negative 14x squared. So I have to think, what do I multiply? It gets negative 14, but if I add those same two numbers, it has to give me a negative 5. So I know a negative 7 times 2 gives me negative 14, and negative 7 plus 2 gives me a negative 5. So I'm going to use those numbers. So negative 7x and 2x. Bring down the sides. I now have 7x squared minus 7x times 2x minus 2. And now I factor. Factor out a 7x. And that leaves me with x minus 1. And on this side, I can factor out a positive 2. And that leaves me with x minus 1. So my answer is going to be 7x plus 2 times x minus 1. Next one, where C is positive. There's no greatest common factor, so I use the AC method. It gives me 21x squared. And I got to think, what do I multiply to get 21? But add them together gives me negative 17. To get 21, I know it's 7 and 3. But 7 plus 3 doesn't give me negative 17. And negative 7 times negative 3 doesn't give me negative, well, that gives me positive 21, but negative 7 plus negative 3 gives me negative 10. There doesn't appear to be any number that I can multiply to get those numbers here. Actually, no, I just realized I didn't multiply these correctly. So this would be 42. So it has to be multiplied to get 42. Add them together gives me negative 17. I know that 14 and 3 multiplied gives me 42. So if I did negative 14 and negative 3, that would give me a positive 42. And negative 14 plus a negative 3 gives me a negative 17. So let's put that in there. So I'll do negative 14x and a negative 3x. Bring down the sides. Then I factor it. I can factor out a 2x. That leaves me with x minus 7. Here I can factor out a negative 3, and that leaves me with x minus 7. So our answer would be 2x minus 3 times x minus 7. So sometimes it may look like you can't factor it, but just go back and double check like I did and make sure that I was using the correct numbers. And as you can see, I did not use the correct numbers originally. And our last question, factor this one. So I have 5x squared minus 27x plus 10. Factor by grouping. I can't factor anything out of all three terms, so factoring the AC would give me 50x squared. And I think, what do I multiply to get 50? But m together gives me negative 27. That would be a negative 25x and a negative 2x. So then if I bring down the sides, I now have 5x squared minus 25x and negative 2x plus 10. Factor out a 5x here, that leaves me with x minus 5. Factor out a negative 2 here, and that leaves me with x minus 5. So our answer would be 5x minus 2 times x minus 5. And that is our lesson on factoring quadratic trinomials.